Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to virtually be here with you. I'm Larkin Oates. I'm an artist and mental health counselor in Nashville, Tennessee in the States. Oh, who also just happens to have dyslexia and ADD. Growing up, because of the encouragement and support I received, I didn't register there was something different about me. In my small private high school, USN, I was encouraged for my strengths and I excelled. I was the first junior and only the second girl to be student council president. I took advanced classes and I even took one at university. But then I went to college. I was overwhelmed at Vanderbilt. It was too large and socially and academically challenging for me. Sometimes I felt a bit like a freak there. Perhaps misguidedly, I studied political science because as a teen, my passion was helping people, and I thought, politics, you help people, right? So I took interesting classes on war theory, Vietnam, and the Russian political system. Those classes, however, didn't excite or inspire me, except for one on poverty and discrimination, which was about how mining companies took advantage of the workers in Appalachia. Oh, I wanted to help those suffering in Appalachia, but I didn't know how to practically turn my classes into helping. Halfway through college, I started taking fun classes like drawing, art history, and photography. I remember one photo project. I woke up at 2 a.m. and was so excited with an idea that I had security come and drive me across campus so I could go to the dark room and work. I had found one of my passions was photography. After college, when I was deciding whether I should be practical and get an MBA, my dad gave me great advice. He said, go for what you love instead of from what you fear. This is great for me because when I'm anxious or afraid or ashamed, my brain seems to either freeze or loop around negativity like a gerbil on an exercise wheel. What's also helpful about what he said is that I'm driven by what I love, and passion can be like an internal flame. Therefore, instead of getting an MBA, I went to study photography a few years at Stanford, where for my homework, I spent some lovely days along the Northern California coast photographing. After Stanford, I worked in a bookstore, so I couldn't afford to stay in Palo Alto any longer. Since I was drawn by the magical light of Taos, New Mexico, I moved there. One year, during a holiday visit home to my parents in Nashville, Tennessee, I heard about a KKK, skinhead, and other white supremacist rally. They were protesting Martin Luther King Day. I was so outraged that I went to photograph. Trained as a documentary photographer, I was somehow able to photograph the Klansmen without showing bias, and I captured them as just family people. I wanted the viewer to consider how we may all have prejudice, even though we don't wear the white satin robes of the Klan. The resulting show was in galleries. Some photos were published, including in the LA Times. Some were used in a program teaching tolerance. This work propelled me into a graduate art program in Boston through Tufts University and a museum school. There, I shocked my graduate advisor by declining to continue to photograph the Klan. He was so excited for me to be in the program and to do that. However, the Klan had identified me and asked me to stop coming to rallies. So, being back in school, my curiosity was lit not by the Klan, but by many new mediums, from performance and video to sculpture and printmaking. My professors thought I was all over the place and without focus. Well, I was all over the place, but I had an internal focus. Through my work, I was processing some of the pain of my life as a woman in the southeastern United States, decades before the women's movement had really arrived there. My work was about Me Too. For my thesis show, I created a living room environment where my family, my brothers, my grandmother, niece, mom and dad, and grandmother, we all dressed and acted like gracious hosts at a lovely party. I wore a black Southern Belle dress with slight hoop skirt with my Doc Marten black boots. Large art hung in gilded frames on the wall. Viewers saw this lovely environment, but were surprised as they moved closer to the art and saw struggles of sexual abuse, oppression of women and of African Americans, and also of slavery. During the event, I carried around a silver platter and passed out little art pieces that they looked like chocolates, but when you looked down into them, they had little photos of Klansmen. I felt like my Klandies, that's what I called them, in the show represented my experience of the former South, where it at first may seem gracious and beautiful, but looking closely, you're startled by the ugliness of abuse, racism, and misogyny. It was a powerful show. However, after my thesis show, my path diverged for cancer treatment, cancer surgery, and chemotherapy. I was lucky that as an artist, I could process my experience through art, journaling, and humor. For example, on Valentine's Day, I bought a card with Barbie on it. You know Barbie the doll. I painted out Barbie's hair and added the title, Chemo Barbie Never Has a Bad Hair Day. During my recovery period, my ex and I moved to Shiprock, New Mexico on the Navajo reservation. There, he was a doctor for the Indian Health Service. While there, I was asked to serve on the board of a domestic abuse shelter for women. I was given the great honor to photograph non-victim Navajo women for their brochure. It was a lovely experience. After leaving the reservation, as with other times between academic experience, I felt like a rudderless boat, directionless. I worked in a bookstore again, totally underfunctioning. In this tale of starts and stops, I must admit one thing that has kept me on track, and that was medication. After I went on antidepressants in Taos, I found enough focus and energy to get my first master's degree. After I went onto ADD meds, I got my second master's. But it wasn't until later, in my 40s, that I got more insight into how to channel my interests so I could bloom. Then, a mentor mentioned how my brain is in some ways similar to my dad's. I could have fallen off a chair. My dad is a world-class research scientist. I thought about it. How could we be alike? Well, we're both sailors. We get distracted, are disorganized, and have time management problems. We can also hyper-focus on what we love with a fiery passion. I learned later that when he studied for tests, he focused by using nicotine gum, while I drank Tab, Diet Cola, and ate chocolate. We both use whole brain and systems thinking. In internal medicine, he sees the body as a whole and how all the parts interact. Similarly, I look at improving the mind-body-spirit systems of my clients. We both also problem solve. Okay, so we have similarities, but finding my life's direction wasn't as simple as Dad's earlier advice to go towards what I love. I often couldn't figure out the how and where to best apply my skills. I hadn't figured out the second part of his secret. To channel my passion and give it structure, I needed to nurture it. Otherwise, I was like a puppy going in circles chasing my tail. So how did Dad do that? Besides being brilliant and hardworking, he lives within the structure of academia and a family life. He pursues his passion within a huge support system. First, he had mentors to advise him and encourage him. Then, when he became department chair of clinical pharmacology and then in internal medicine at Vanderbilt, he had colleagues in research labs and lab assistants, office assistants, and collaborators worldwide. Like many wealthy ADHD entrepreneurs, he had people to implement his ideas. And I'm not saying he's ADD. Oh, and to support him, he also had my mom, who managed the home and family, fed him, and she got him out of bed every morning. My dad has so much fun at work now at 87. He says he's even more excited about his research and just finished writing his latest research grant last Monday. As I've moved into my career, I've learned from his example of getting help and collaboration. And although I haven't gotten a wife equivalent, I've created a network of encouraging people and helpers, friends, family, marketing, and computer people I sometimes call assistants or organizers, house cleaners. And I have an ADD coach, Barbara Lipscomb, in Southern California. I have a therapist. Yes. For clients and myself, I've tried to suggest we stay in tune with ourselves somatically. So I have us look at how we feel when we're around people that encourage us and how we feel when we're with people that don't encourage us. So sometimes when I don't feel good about myself or my work, I look around me and realize my environment or certain people are not encouraging and in fact may be shaming. I remove myself from those situations if I can. In terms of support, I mustn't forget my Labrador retrievers. Each has been vital support to me. There is nothing like coming home to the unconditional love of a prancing and happy, smiling lab. Until I lost my recent dog, Corky, I had no idea how much she helped me in the morning to start my day. In the morning, if I slept in, she would put her face up close to mine and quietly stare at me until I got up and fed her. Not only was she funny, she was a calming influence. She provided me with structure to my days. I was needed and had purpose. Despite this, some days it's still easy to feel off track. So lucky me, I needn't fear boredom because with the politics in the United States lately and my passion for justice, I can always look forward to photographing local rallies. Last year for the Women's March that was international, I think, I organized the photographers for the Nashville March, and after editing the collection, I got to send them on to the National Archives for the Women's March. When I wonder what I'll do without rallies to inspire me to photograph, but when all else fails, how do I inspire my prefrontal cortex, my executive functioning, to move forward? So we've already talked about medication and encouragement. Deadlines always help, and my passions and interests. But I need to add that tokens and rewards help. During a really tough period at one point, I was so down that I was depressing my sweet dog, Diggity. I decided that I needed to take him to the dog park, so I bribed myself. I could get a latte at my favorite coffee shop if I would take him to the dog park. This created a lovely ritual for us that I continued for years. So part of the moral of the story, and in conclusion, dogs are not only great emotional support for me, they get me out of bed in the morning and help me exercise. So if you know of any, I am now looking for a smiley adult hypoallergenic female dog, well-trained and socialized, preferably a Cavachon or mini Labradoodle or some doodle dog that's small. If you know of one, let me know. Lark and Ed's, Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for listening to my story and for all the help you do for people like me. Have a great day.